He thought she was just a quiet, ordinary woman who didn't belong anywhere near a tactical shooting range. But when the elite SEAL commander spat at her boots and told her to go back to the kitchen, he had no idea he was insulting the one person who could take him down in 5 seconds and change the course of his life forever. Before we begin, this is Tales and Turns. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. And tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We love seeing how far our stories travel. Now, let's begin. She arrived alone, carrying an old canvas bag slung over her shoulder. Her clothes were simple, her demeanor quiet, and the men at the range barely noticed her until she walked onto the firing line reserved for the elite. The CL commander, tall, broad, and admired by everyone around him, sneered the moment he saw her. His pride didn't allow space for humility, and certainly not for someone he assumed to be beneath him. With exaggerated disgust, he spat at the dirt beside her boots, muttering just loud enough for the others to hear. But the woman didn't flinch. She merely set her bag down and waited, as if she'd seen far worse than arrogance. The commander stepped closer, towering with a smirk carved into his face. "This area's not for tourists," he said. "Go play somewhere else." She looked up, her eyes calm but unreadable, and politely asked him to move aside. The men chuckled. No one had ever spoken to him like that. Annoyed, he flicked her shoulder as if shooing away a stray cat. But something in her stillness, an unshakable confidence, unnerved one of the younger trainees. He watched her closely, sensing something the others had missed. Not wanting to embarrass himself publicly, the commander escalated. "Fine, show us what you've got," he challenged, pointing to a high, level test target hanging 200 meters away. "Hit the center 3 times. Bet you can't even hold the rifle right." She quietly unzipped her bag and pulled out an old, scarred rifle. Nothing fancy, nothing modern. Some of the men snickered at the antique weapon, but she inspected it with gentle familiarity, like greeting an old friend. Without a word, she stepped into position, took a breath, and fired 3 shots so clean, so precise, that the entire line fell silent. All 3 penetrated the bullseye perfectly. The commander's pride cracked with the sound of those shots. Instead of showing respect, he grew angrier. "Beginner's luck," he muttered, stepping into her space again. This time, fully fueled by humiliation, he shoved her shoulder hard enough to make most people stumble. But she didn't move. She merely looked up, meeting his glare with complete, unsettling calm. "Don't do that," she said. He barked a laugh, mistaking her warning for fear. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that her calm wasn't weakness. It was restraint. He shoved her again. "Or what?" he demanded. The woman looked at him once more, finally deciding that teaching him a lesson was the only way he would understand. The younger trainee shouted, "Sir, maybe." But he didn't finish, because in the very next heartbeat, the quiet woman moved. 5 seconds. That's all it took. A swift pivot, a controlled lock, and the elite SEAL commander was flat on the ground, his arm twisted safely but firmly behind his back, unable to break free. The surrounding men froze, eyes wide, mouths open. They hadn't even seen the transition between her movements. It had happened too fast, too cleanly, too expertly. Pinned against the dirt, the commander looked up at her, stunned, not by pain. She wasn't hurting him, but by the realization that the person he judged so quickly was operating on a level he'd never imagined. She released him gently, not triumphantly, and stepped back with the same quiet dignity she had arrived with. Ashamed and shaken, he stood slowly, brushing dust from his uniform. The humiliation that burned in him wasn't the kind he could fight back with ego. Instead, something deeper pierced through the arrogance he'd worn for years. Respect. Unable to hide behind pride anymore, he approached her with a completely different posture. "Who are you?" he asked. She hesitated for a moment, then finally told him the truth. She was a former instructor who had once trained Special Forces operatives in hand combat before leaving the field after a personal tragedy. She had come to the range to find peace, not conflict, and she had hoped to go unnoticed. Her voice trembled slightly, not with fear, but with the weight of memories she rarely spoke about. For the first time perhaps in his entire career, the commander felt small in a way that made him reflect instead of react. He apologized, sincerely. The men around them watched this unfamiliar version of their leader, one stripped of ego and filled instead with humility. From that day forward, he changed, not because he had been defeated physically, but because she had shown him a mirror he couldn't ignore. He invited her to help train his team, promising respect and partnership, and surprisingly, she agreed. Not for him, but because she saw young trainees in need of guidance she knew she could give. In the weeks that followed, her presence transformed the entire unit. The commander learned the meaning of true leadership, humility, empathy, and strength balanced with grace. Under her quiet mentorship, he became someone the men admired not for his dominance, but for his growth. And she, without intending to, found healing through teaching again. One steady breath, one corrected stance, one restored purpose at a time. Their story became a whispered legend around the range, a reminder never to judge by appearances and never to mistake silence for weakness. And thus, what began with spit, arrogance, and insult ended with respect, transformation, and a friendship built on lessons learned the hard way. The commander's life changed forever, not because she defeated him, but because she taught him what real strength truly looks like.